Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mtg Traders. My name is Taryn, and I have kind of a very special video that you guys have kind of requested for me to do. And what this video is how I build decks for the deck techs on the channel. This isn't like a strict guide or anything like that. This is just my version of how I kind of look up decks that I like and look up cards that I want to include into my deck. For the actual decks on the standard, for modern, for pauper, and so on. And you know, there might be like more efficient ways to do this. This has always been kind of my way to do it, and I know it's, you know, kind of specific to just me, but I really hope you guys appreciate this. And of course, if you have any other questions, I can always answer them in the comments below. So just for an example, let's start with a standard deck first. What are the things I go about to make a standard deck for the channel? Before we get into like searching on websites and that kind of stuff for cards and looking at images of cards and all that kind of stuff, I first kind of want to have an idea of like what the deck needs to be or what the deck wants to be. For example, if I want to do cat tribal, then I want to say, okay, well, this is going to be a cat deck, it's going to have lots of cats in it, and so on. And we kind of go from there and kind of decide our color choice based on the cards we have at our disposal. But if it's a more flexible strategy, like a pirates list, where it's just like a lot of cards, or a lot of cards in the pool for pirates, of course, you have Grixis pirates, Dimir pirates, Izzet pirates, Rakdos pirates, you can do tons of different combinations. What I try to do then is try to pick a lane, basically, and go down a single way of how to build the deck. So if it's a heavy removal deck, it's going to have a lot of heavy removal and a lot of fast attacking creatures. If it's a control deck, it's probably going to have lower like power and toughness creatures, but probably have a lot of control cards in the deck, and kind of so on from there. So one of the best resources I use all the time for standard decks is actually Mtg Goldfish. It's like super simple, super straightforward. If I want to go to the metagame here, I just go to, you know, the decks and the metagame breakdown right there. And it's going to give me all the decks in standard, modern, pauper, legacy, vintage, and so on. And of course, you can scroll down here, look at all the decks that are like placing really well in tournaments, but also decks that are like considered budget, and kind of look at those situations. And a lot of these, of course, are like Sapphire and Olive decks, things like that. I want to make sure that my deck is my own. And so normally what I do is if I find a deck idea, like if I want to do like a, you know, blue-green or black-green, not blue-green, black-green like Constrictor or something like that, I look up that list or look up a bunch of lists and say, okay, what are they doing and what can I do that's different? You know, it's not about like necessarily net decking from a person or like taking just their entire deck list. It's about saying, okay, I want to build my own list. There are only so many cards in Magic to use, especially in a standard pool. So what can I make with that card pool that's different and kind of unique and my own? So for example, here we have Mono Red Aggro. They have a great list here for us, broke down. This is from the SCG Standard IQ. This is a second place like deck list. And of course over here you have all the different like places it had as well. Really great like information to know, really good information as far as like, you know, down here, the card breakdown, what cards were used in each kind of deck, what cards are used in most of the tournament decks for this style of deck, and so on. And I kind of go from there. And of course, if I want to make a budget deck, do I say, okay, well, I need to cut this deck or this card like Hazred if I want to be more budget, or do I want to make sure it's more of a competitive like top tier deck, like ones like this where it's just basically just this deck, or a deck that's similar to this that's doing a little bit things different. You can also do things like play around like right here. I can hit edit copy, and you can actually go down here to a deck builder where the actual deck is just built out. So if you say, okay, well, I don't want Aethys for Harvester in the actual sideboard here, I'm just going to delete that and hit update preview, and bam, it's gone from the sideboard. There's only like 13 cards in the sideboard now, so you can have more space to put in something else. So it's a really good way for you to like build a deck that's not necessarily the deck that is on the actual like list here, but you can make it different enough to be a deck that is yours, unique, and of course something you're proud of that you built yourself. And I do think net decking is kind of a brewer's best friend. You kind of want to see, you know, what people are doing, and you kind of see, okay, well, can I counter that or can I improve upon that? Ultimately, I think a brewer's job is to innovate and to improve upon what already is a good and established deck, and that's what we're going to try here. Now, as far as like deck builders and stuff, I actually just used the Mtg Goldfish deck builder here. I really like it. It's really simple and straightforward. It does give you like a listing here how much it does online and on paper. However, this online is not normally as accurate as it could be. So if I go here to like buy from Mtg Traders and look here online, it's actually 109. So it's a little bit cheaper on here. Now, of course, it's very, very close, but those can be different depending on, you know, what kind of like deck you're actually building and things like that. All these are right here are just like estimates. Okay, so that's one example of how to build a deck. So how about I want to build a deck from like the ground up? Let's say that there's a deck that it just doesn't exist yet, or there's not really a lot of good lists out there yet. What is a deck that I want to build from the ground up? Like say like Construct Tribal, you know, something like that. A really good website for me to use is actually called Scryfall here. It's very useful. It's scryfall.com. Of course, not sponsored, not anything like that. This is just something I use personally. So if we have a like a particular card we want to go over, like a, you know, like Fatal Push, we can type that in, pulls it up, shows me all the legality and all that kind of stuff, shows me the prints it was available in, and of course you have all these other things down here. You can buy them from different places, but my favorite thing, because I'm a deck builder and I make videos on the internet, you can download PNG images of this, and they're really nice high quality images here of the actual card, and it's awesome. You also have a lot of great like toolbox analysis things over here on the left here. I don't really use these as much. I just kind of use this here just to kind of see what it does. The set symbol, that kind of stuff is always available as well if you go into advanced search, and of course downloading that PNG for the card. Most of the time I'll build my deck into like the Mtg Goldfish like deck builder here, and then I'll just kind of copy paste into the search bar and like get all the cards I want, download them as a PNG, and then start making my deck text. But let's say I want to do like say construct tribal, so let's go to advanced here on the top, and let's say card name, oracle text, type line, so we'll say we'll just say construct. And then colors, you can choose colors if you want to, don't have to though. You have a bunch of different ways to kind of sort it through. And of course, people are going to kind of like relate this to like the Gatherer. I'm not that big of a fan of the Gatherer personally. It's a little bit clunky. This is a lot easier and has a lot more features to be able to be used for me for deck building and brewing. So I'm gonna go in format standard, and then I can always just pick a bunch of other stuff, or I can just hit search for these options, and bam, it's just gonna show all the constructs from the list that's currently in standard right now. And of course, you can name these or sort these however you want, like with the images, or sort by rarity. Like I can sort by rarity and go, okay, well the mythics are at the top and the rares from there, and so on. I normally don't just do sorted, I just do like, whatever they give me here. Again, it's really useful for me if I want to build it into a deck that really doesn't exist yet. I can say, okay, well this card's really good just by reading it and kind of go from there. Another way, because it's kind of a hard and fast rule for me as far as like deck building and brewing, I actually like to just go to the basic just image galleries of the decks on Wizard's actual website itself. I just go through here, pick blue, white, black, whatever colors I'm working with, and then just kind of pick from here. Say, okay, well I really like Confiscation Coup, and put that into my my deck list over here, and then I'm good to go. And of course, the more you get used to it, as far as like deck building, the more cards you're aware of in the format. So for standard, I'm really super aware of all the cards in the format. So if I'm like, okay, well I'm building this deck, this card would be good with this, and this, and so on, but if I'm like building in Modern or Pauper, I really need to kind of heavily rely on Scryfall because I'm not really familiar with that particular format. Like let's go back to Advanced here and say, okay, well I want to have, let's say an Elf. We're not going to choose colors again. We're just going to go down here and go with, let's say Pauper. Where's that? There it is. And hit search. And it's going to show you all the elves that are available in the Pauper format. And for me, this is kind of a good way to kind of circumvent brewing around a deck. As far as like the deck that's like on MTGO or Mtg Goldfish here. Like if I go to metagame and I'm like, okay, well I'm building a green-red aggro list on my own, but I'm not looking at this list at all. So I'm kind of building like my own unique version of it. So that's how I kind of do it. I kind of go from like one direction. Either I start with the deck list that's really popular, and then I kind of, devolve it or make it unique in my own way. Or I start with nothing and then build up to that deck list. And then I'm kind of like, okay, well, what does it look like compared to like the actual deck list that performs really well? What kind of makes it different? I will say going from nothing to building up does make situations where you get really close to a tournament deck. Like say, like green-white cat travel that I actually built a few months ago. I built a version that was very close to a Saffron Olive build, and we actually like posted our videos within a day apart of each other. It was crazy. So it's just something like that can happen, It's always going to happen, of course, if you're doing like content creation, things like that. But for like deck building and net decking and all that kind of stuff, it's really useful for you because it can really help you like be a better deck builder and kind of see what other decks are doing and what other decks are lacking, especially in the sideboard. Because I will say, sideboard is going to be the most different compared to every single player's deck. And the reason for that, of course, is that sideboards are dependent on the meta that you're playing around. So for me, I like to build like very generic, very basic, safe sideboards. And the reason is because I'm playing on Magic the Gathering Online. So what that means is I'm playing against a wide swath of different decks. And so I try to make sure that my sideboard has as many interactions as possible with as many decks as possible to make sure that we have a slight advantage against those decks. Now you'll probably notice if you're looking at the like MTG Goldfish here and you're looking at the sideboard game plans for a lot of these like tournament decks, they may just be like kind of off the wall and crazy. Some cards like don't make any sense, and some cards make sense with other cards. But the reason for that is because of the meta. And this is especially apparent when you get into metas like Modern, Legacy, Vintage, things like that, and even Pauper. where the actual format is just so wide, it's very difficult to kind of like figure out what the actual sideboard is doing. And of course, there's always cards that are going to be amazing, like Inquisition of Kozilek, Duress, all that kind of stuff. But there are some sideboards here, like in Modern and Vintage and so on, and more of the Eternal formats, that are kind of more random. So it's kind of up to like you to build whatever sideboard you want to build for the actual deck archetype you're going for. Another great resource to use for like deck building and brewing and that kind of stuff is actually tappedoutlike.net. It's actually really useful for us for Magic players. I will say, however, it's kind of difficult to find everything you want to find because of course it's through advanced search here. You want to go that way, but you have like decks right here that are like the latest of the tops. You can click on their deck list and it shows like a quick breakdown of how everything works on the deck and all that kind of stuff. And while that's great, I don't necessarily use Tapped Out as much as I do like Scryfall or Mtg Goldfish for like brewing, kind of like seeing the actual like situation as far as like how people are building decks and so on. But I kind of come here every now and then to just kind of see what other people are doing and see if there's anything that's kind of new, that's fun, you know, different. But that's basically just a really quick crash course in how I kind of build decks for the channel and things like that. Of course, it kind of takes a lot of like, you know, thought process to kind of come up with an idea. Like say I want to go to Kaladesh here. We're at Rivals of Ixalan now as far as like standard goes, but I really want to like utilize cards from Kaladesh more frequently. So maybe I'm wanting to do like a Vidalkin, you know, like deck instead of a Merfolk deck or whatever. Maybe I can do that now thanks to cards like Radiant Destiny or whatever. So I kind of look back and forth between the formats and kind of go from there, which is really cool. As always, the bigger the card pool, the more like interactive and more unique deck lists you can actually get out of it. And I feel like right now Standard is in a very healthy place to do that. Of course, Modern is in that too, and has always been in that because it's such a huge format to play in. And Pauper is as well. However, Pauper I feel like is kind of like Modern Junior or Legacy Junior more like, because there are so many cards that are just better than other cards in the Pauper format. So it can kind of limit how you build your deck. But yeah, so what I normally do here is I'll make my deck list here on Mtg Goldfish. I'll take it to MTG Traders or MTGO Traders to say, okay, well this is in stock, this isn't in stock. You know how I want to build this as far as like whenever I purchase it or whatever, and then kind of go from there and see how much it's going to cost in tickets or how much it's going to cost in actual paper here, stuff like that. I know this is a really quick video, but I really do hope that this is really helpful to you guys. If you have any questions, of course, you can always shoot me a comment down below. Like the video, of course, if you liked it. I will probably make another video in the near future that kind of goes over this at like more detail. I do think that like deck building and brewing is very, very easy for people. I just feel like some people like are kind of scared to do it because they don't know where to go, what to do, or what processes to use to kind of get the cards they want to get. But I do feel places like MTG Goldfish, Scryfall especially, and of course just looking at the image galleries from Wizard's own website is a very great way to like build a deck. I feel like now it's easier than ever to build a deck. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. Like the video if you liked it, and I will see you guys in the next video, or I will see you at GP Memphis if you're there for that too. So peace.